What's happening, guys? And welcome back to the channel. And Steven Gerrard is back in the Premier League, swapping Glasgow Rangers for Aston Villa after 3.5 years at Ibrox, delivering the 55th league title for Rangers and an unbeaten season. He swaps the SPL for the Premier League. And George, do you just feel for Gerrard this is too good an opportunity to turn down the lure of the Premier League, the club the size of Aston Villa? I mean, ideally, I think he probably would have liked to have seen the season out at Rangers, get another league title in the bag, and then move on. But obviously, you don't always get that choice. And I think this is just a case of too good an opportunity to say no to.
Yeah, he summed it up perfectly there. A lot of fans from the summary and what's been going on in the news, I think there are some bitter Rangers fans who feel as if though they've been left in the lurch a little bit with the club, at the beginning of the season. But like you said, mate, Steven Gerrard, I think he was never going to be there long term. Probably overstayed his welcome in some aspects. And when an opportunity like this comes for, let's not kid ourselves. This is a big football club. This is a huge historical football club. And I know people will say it's a big club, but they need to do big things, and they've got a real potential to go a big step up. And I think Steven Gerrard, once he was given the opportunity, and obviously they narrowed that shortlist and offered him the job, I think it was a no-brainer, really. As big as Rangers are a club in their own right, I think the step up in quality to the Premier League is ultimately what Gerrard wanted to do. And whether there should have been a stopgap in between, we don't know. But I think it's a really interesting and exciting prospect ahead for Steven Gerrard. But he's got to get down to work now. I think this is going to be huge.
I mean, it's a great job for him. I don't think many managers, particularly of his level of experience, you can go into your first job in the Premier League and get a better job than Aston Villa. It's quite unbelievable. A massive football club, obviously not doing as well as they should be. The squad is really good. There's a lot of talented players in there. But George is going to have quite a big inbox of things to attend to because Aston Villa not playing well. Obviously, Jack Grealish has moved on. They've reinvested the money well, but they've struggled with injuries, getting the new players to gel, and obviously sits 16th in the table. I mean, how important is it that he hits the ground running and picks up a couple of good results? They've got a tough run of fixtures his first few. Obviously, they've got in-form Brighton and then Crystal Palace in his first 2 games. But that's not easy.
No, but I think they will back him. I don't think it needs to be immediate. I think he'll be given time by Villa, and it shows probably. Although we can't look too much into contracts, he's been given a 3.5-year deal. So I don't expect results to be instant. You would expect a lift, and you would expect the instant respect, being such a Premier League legend in his own right from his footballing days at Liverpool. So I think he'll get that. And, he's a role model to some of those players in there. As a manager, I mean, I don't know too much. Obviously, the unbeaten season with Rangers and how he got them to stop Celtic winning for 10 years in a row, I think that was impressive. But we didn't get much coverage of the SPL, so we don't really know how he's going to step up in terms of his tactics and everything else. I know that he's appointed as his assistant, Gary McAllister.
Yeah, he's taken McAllister with him. I was going to say that's obviously going to be very important. McAllister, very experienced, and also has experience of Aston Villa as well, because he was a number 2 when Gerard Houllier was there.
Yeah, and the place needed a lift. I mean, as much as it's a shame to see the ex-manager go, I think the whole place needed a bit of a lift and a bit of a boost, and Steven Gerrard brings that in instantly. So you would expect at least a level up in performance from the Villa players. But again, it's not an easy job. I do think there are 3 teams worse than Aston Villa, but I mean, make no mistake, I think it is going to be tougher than people anticipate. I don't think it's going to be a case of them rocketing up into the top 6 and starting to charge towards next season top 4. I think it's going to be harder than that.
And as I mentioned, there's a lot to sort out. Obviously, the defence, which was so good last season, I think only Chelsea and Manchester City kept more clean sheets than Aston Villa. This time round, though, there's been leaking goals all over the place. And I think John Terry's departure as assistant manager is no coincidence that it's coincided with them leaking goals at the back. How important is it, George, that he shores up that defence? Because obviously you're not going to win many matches or pick up a lot of points if you're leaking goals like they currently are.
I mean, the first thing that any manager that's going into a club that's struggling will probably say is that let's make ourselves hard to beat. I think that's probably the first objective, rather than trying to play this all-star attacking football that comes over time. So I think you're right, mate. I think, you've got to have a solid base to start with, and stopping goals going in the Premier League, because it's such a tough league in terms of you get punished very, very quickly if you make individual or collective mistakes. So I think Gerrard will do that. Again, it's going to need time. I'm not expecting instant response with results. But I hope, again, just like the Patrick Vieira situation at Crystal Palace, I hope I'm proved wrong. I hope Steven Gerrard has a really great tenure at Aston Villa. And yeah, I mean, the best of luck to Stevie G. It's great to see him back in the Premier League as well. And hopefully this is what I think everyone anticipates to be his stepping stone towards getting that all-elusive job at Anfield again.
Yeah, I think it's almost an audition as such. Obviously, no one kind of knows how long Klopp's going to go on for. But if Gerrard can have 2 to 3 pretty good years at Aston Villa, cup runs, solid top half finishes, then I think that kind of may show that he'd be ready to step up to Liverpool. But George, another thing that's going to be crucial is getting the forward players firing again. Obviously, they reinvested the Jack Grealish money. Very, very well invested, I feel. But, the likes of Emi Buendia, Danny Ings, Leon Bailey, they've all struggled to fit themselves into the team. I think Dean Smith struggled to incorporate a system that could get Ollie Watkins, last season's top scorer, and Danny Ings firing together. I mean, how important is it that he finds the right mix at the top end of the pitch as well? Because there's a lot of attacking talent in this side.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think that's what if we want to call it a current ex-professional will do. I think they can relate on a player's level of difficult moments and attacking, Gerrard being an attacking midfielder himself, I think he can have that one-to-one or team conversation with those attacking players. And actually there can be that chemistry where I think the previous manager, I know he did play football to some level, but I think it's hard to put into words. You need that role model who's been there and done it to have that level of understanding. And I think he'll get that from those attacking players. So I actually think that's where Gerrard's got his best asset, in the sense that he's quite a current ex-Premier League player and he can relate to those players. I have no doubts that they'll start scoring goals. I just think at the other end, I think is where it needs to be sorted out.
And obviously, we touched on it briefly, but how vital is it that he brings experience with him in his backroom team? Obviously, Gary McAllister coming in as assistant with him at Rangers, and I mentioned experience at Aston Villa. How important is that to have that experience around you when it's kind of your first big job in the Premier League?
Well, massive, because I think he's come into the job knowing that he's nowhere near experienced as some other managers in the Premier League. I mean, you only have to reel off some of the names at the very top end of the Premier League and how many years they've been managing clubs and the clubs that they've had to manage. I mean, even Claudio Ranieri's at Watford now, managing in the, what's it, Serie C or B, with I can't remember who it was now, but those types of clubs, and he's only had a very short spell of time at a club, and you need that experience longer. I think that was one of the pitfalls maybe of Frank Lampard. Who do you turn to? Who does Ole Gunnar Solskjaer turn to his left and right in terms of experience? I think you need someone of that. Whether Gary McAllister's experienced enough, I mean, I know he's been number 2, but I would have liked to have seen someone with a bit more experience next to him, but maybe he is ready to kind of lead to the front on his own. But I do think, I think you need experience in the Premier League is crucial for that advice.
Yeah, no, 100%. When times get tough, you need someone to turn to. As you mentioned, I think that's where Lampard struggled, complete lack of experience in the coaching team when things are tough. And I think the same with Solskjaer as well. So I think it's vital that you get your backroom staff right when you're a relatively inexperienced manager. But George, ultimately, how do you think, I'm not going to ask you to judge Gerrard's tenure as a whole, but this season, obviously, do you think he'll do pretty well, steady the ship, and there's no danger of Aston Villa going down? I mean, a top half finish should be pretty achievable.
Yeah, I don't want to get too ahead, because I do think there is a danger, not that they'll go down, but there's a danger that they could have quite a difficult season still. I mean, let's get that right. I mean, Steven Gerrard, for me, is still not a fully accomplished manager, just because he's managed in the SPL, which we know is a huge step below. I mean, a lot of those Scottish teams would not get anywhere near the Premier League. So this is a huge test for Steven Gerrard. I would expect a boost. I'd expect an improvement in performance. Results are another thing. But again, it could be the classic case where he has a temporary bounce, but then when the going gets tough, maybe next season is where we really see the real Steven Gerrard at Aston Villa, and it's the classic cliche, and only time will tell.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely a bounce. It's a risk for Gerrard, of course, but it's 100% a risk worth taking for him. And it's a risk for Aston Villa as well. But I think it's a risk, again, that's worth them taking as well, because it can pay off very handsomely for them. But yeah, it remains to be seen how Steven Gerrard would do. But yeah, it's great to see him back in the Premier League, obviously a playing legend. Be good to see how he adapts. But yeah, guys, that's just myself and George's thoughts. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you smash a like on this video. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one.